Finishing up our homepage design is a third section in our content area that is going to house some featured content. So I'm going to scroll down here and just kind of show you what we're talking about here. You'll notice that there's a 3-column section here, and as I hover over each section, it highlights. There's a hover property over each of these sections, and they link to another page. So this column right here links to the showcase page. This column here links to the internship experience page, and then this column here links to the education research page. They somewhat go in order here in terms of thinking logically, chronologically anyway. Showcase is all about your stuff that you have now. Internship experience was more career related, but something that you've done, and then kind of next steps with your college piece. Quickly, you'll see that there's an image in each of these, and then there's a bit of text underneath. What you're going to find here is that these columns will expand to fit the amount of content that you place in here. So you need to be mindful of the amount of content that you place in here if you want to keep all of these columns the same height. You can give them each a height property, but you might run the risk of, say, like too much content or too little. It's just kind of depends on the type of look that you're going for. The point for each one of these is to show some kind of image here to give your users a visualization of what that page is about, and then a little bit of context or content to provide context for what that link is also about. And so then the idea is to entice your audience to click on this link and to go to that page. So like for instance, I click on this and then it takes me to my showcase page. Okay, so let's get started on that. I'm going to tab over to my Dreamweaver page and have my index page already open. If you do not have yours open, just double click index.html on your files panel there. We're going to start this off in the style sheet rather than in our source code here. So I'm going to click on the portfolio main.css, and these content styles that we're going to insert is going to go after our secondary styles that we just finished up in our last tutorial. So I'm right after that last line that I created in my style sheet called content secondary main li and the li tag, and right before the footer styles there. So I'm going to hit the enter return key a couple of times and then put in my comment. And this comment here is going to be just simply named highlighted columns, or I'll just do column styles. Okay, now we have 3 columns, and each column is essentially going to be a class, and we will need to create one ID for one of these columns for spacing, and you'll see how this is going to work in a minute. So the first one, we're going to start off with a class called content. Oops, let's spell that correctly. -3-col for column, and then open up a curly brace, and we're going to float each one of these to the left so that they go inline or horizontal instead of vertical. So we're floating them left, and I've done the math on this already. Each of these columns can be about 290 pixels wide with some padding and with margin in between to give some spacing for our content. So just trust me on that value. It goes in pretty evenly. With that, you're welcome to experiment with that. Just remember that anything that you have that is over, when you add everything up with your margin and your padding and your width, anything over 940 pixels will not float these columns correctly. So hit the enter return key, and we're going to type in some padding here, and we're giving this some very special treatment in terms of the padding. We're doing 0 on top. You'll see why with that in a minute, because we'll put some text and things in there that will add some padding there, so we don't need to do any padding on the top. But we do want to do some paddings on the right and the bottom, and we're going to do 5 pixels on the left and right, We're going to do 15 on the bottom so that we have some spacing there at the end of whatever content that we put in the bottom there. And left and right 5 pixels, just so that our text doesn't run into the border that we're going to put in for each of these columns. So make sure that you end that with a semicolon. And then next we're going to go ahead and give this a border, just so you can tell that each of these is a kind of a featured area. So 1's pixels solid number. We're going with the 59, 59, 59 color treatment, like our background color. You can use black or anything else that you'd prefer. And I'm going to go ahead and put in a background here, background color, for just because, just for any kind of reason, maybe we end up with something funky, just so I know, like, I don't have any surprises. And then that'll set us up for each of our 3 columns, but you'll notice that I haven't spaced these out at all. So if I were to put these in right now, all 3 of them, they would be right up against each other. So you notice that I haven't put any kind of margin values to spread these out. And the reason for that is because if I start to put in some margin here for each one of these, what's going to happen is that it's going to apply that margin value to the left and right of each of these columns, and we're going to have some double spacing kind of scenario going on. So what I'm going to do instead is, because I can't well, take that back, we could add a second class to one of these columns, but the 2 classes are not supported in anything lower than HTML5. So instead we're going to create an ID, and this ID is going to be called mid-column, and this is where we're going to apply our margin spacing so that our columns are spread out. So it's a pretty simple trick here. We do 0 margin value on the top and bottom, but the left and right is going to be spaced out 15 pixels. So when we apply this ID to this middle column, it'll give us the spacing that we need between the first and the third columns that we're going to create. Next on our list, I'm gonna push through to a couple of different things here, so that way we can, when we put some content in here, we can test it out and see how it's going to look. Each of these columns is going to become a button, and we're going to wrap each of these columns in an A element to link these boxes to a page. But we're going to do so by creating a class for the A element. So we're going to call this COL for column dash BTN for button. So call button. And then we're going to open up a curly brace. And when we do this, we need to set our display to block, just as we do with our navigation menu oftentimes. Yeah, with some navigation menus anyway. We need to do the same width treatment for this button as we would the width of our column, so it does hit the same amount of width of our column. And then when we add the A element to this box, what's going to end up happening is it's going to style all of our text with the default properties of the A element. So that means it's going to underline our text, and it's also going to turn it blue. So there's a little bit of we need to take away the text decoration of underline, but the challenge, and by doing the way we're doing it this way, the challenge is that we can't necessarily style text color as we want for the whole box, because we are applying, because by default the A element is blue, and we don't want our text to be blue. So what I have to do here is I have to say our color to be black. And so if I want to change up any kind of colors for, say, like a heading or whatever, I'm not going to be able to do that, because this this black should override that color. So just keep that in mind if you try to change up some colors in your headings and stuff in these highlighted columns. Okay, I digress. Keep going forward. So the other part of this piece is we want we want when we hover over these boxes, um, we want to see something happen, and we're not necessarily going to apply that hover property to our A element. We're actually going to apply it to that class of content3 call. So we're going to do content period first, content dash 3 dash call, and then colon hover, and then open up a curly brace. So when we hover over this div class, this div, it's going to hover, and it's still going to act like a link because we're going to wrap that div class in an A element as well. So we're just changing it up a little bit, and it works this way. Trust me, we don't want to apply the hover to the A element. It's not going to work in the same way. We need to set the display here to block, and we can go ahead and give this a background color. And the background color I'm going to apply to this is going to be an RGBA color scheme. And I think you should play around with the color of this highlight. I played around with color on my piece a couple of different times because this area is a really light gray. Using like a lighter white or a lighter gray really wasn't much of an option. I could go with potentially a darker gray. That's also another option that I can do. But what I'm going to do instead is, so I'm going to start typing in RGBA here. What I'm going to do instead is I've taken that orange color that I've used before in other places, and I am going to, and I found what color it was, the RGB color of it. And so I'm going to type that in what it is now, so you can pick what you like here. And then I'm going to apply an opacity. So I'm going to drop it down only 40% so that it's very, doesn't overpower the background. And so when you hover over it, it's pretty light. You can do the same thing with the hexadecimal. So just for instance, I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out real quick. So for instance, if you type in the pound symbol and you're not sure which color you want to use, type in the pound symbol with you get your color hint, and then click on RGBA here, and then pick a color that you think would be good, lower that opacity down, and then hit enter return, and you'll get that color value that you're looking for. Okay, so I'm just going to type mine in, paste that back in, and then I'm going to hit the enter return key, and then close that out with a curly brace. So I know I have more styles to insert for the rest of these columns, and I want to make sure that I put some of that content in first before I go back and put those styling in. I want you guys to see the types of styles that I need to put in. But remember, these columns get nested within a couple of different div classes in order for our page to look the same. And one of those div classes I have not created yet, or div IDs actually in this case. No, in this case we're going to create a class. And it goes back to all the way from the very beginning. When we go up to the top here, I have not created this yet because I haven't had a need for it, and I do have a need for it here because I don't have one to place it in. So if you remember right, when we inserted one of our div classes to create that look of our page going in infinite directions, and we want to center it within our page, we nest a couple of divs within each other. One of those is a content wrapper, or in this case back here with a secondary content style, it's the content secondary wrapper. The width is 100%, and we give it some margin and a background. The problem here is with the white section that I have for this area, I've only done it at the top. So I have content main wrap top. And the reason why this is a problem is because the margin is set at 215 pixels at the top, and I don't want that to happen. So I need to create another content main wrap that is not set to the top, so that I can do the margin at 30 pixels as our other content sections that we have down here. So I'm going to locate where that is, so content main wrap top. I'm going to place my cursor right after that closing curly brace and hit the enter return key. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a content main wrap that I can use in other sections that does not go at the top. So before I forget, I want to make sure that I put that in as a comment that says right after that open curly brace, that says for content section not, or for, yeah, I guess we'll just say not immediately following the fixed header. In other words, for everything else. Okay, and then enter return, tab in, width is 100%, same as the treatment that we've done before. And then this time the margin here is 30 pixels on the top, auto left, 0 bottom, auto right. So essentially it's the same as this, only the margin is a little bit different. So now when I go into my source code to start entering my columns, I have that white section for them to start going into, and we may use this in another area, or sorry, this one. We may use this one in another area on our other pages. So I'm going to go ahead and save that real quick, and now I can go over to my source code and start inserting those div classes. So I'm going to start off with, I'm going to look for where I left off, and that was right after the div class content secondary wrap, right after our goals section, and it's right in between that closing div tag there, and then where we have the break class clear right below the footer. So on mine it's line 75. For yours it's gonna probably be somewhere different, but that's where you're looking for. Okay, so we're going to start with the left caret div class, and this is content main wrap, and then right caret, enter return, left caret /, and in that space and right above, I'm going to move my cursor up there, right in between, and then tab over, and we still need to insert our content main contain so that it centers our content within our page. So left caret, and this is going to be div class content main contain, so that's the 940 pixel wide container, and then enter return key, left caret /, and then I left a space there so I can start inserting my content in that section. So I'm going to tab forward again because this is all going to be nested here. Now I can insert my columns, and I'm going to do some copying and pasting here so that it'll make it easy down the road. So remember that these classes here, one of them we're going to apply an ID. So the first one is we're just going to do div class, let's see, content 3 call, and then right caret, and then enter return key, left caret /. Okay, and we need to do this 3 times, so I'm just going to grab that line there and then copy it and paste it, and then paste it again. So I have 3 of those, and in the middle one, right after where it says class, I'm going to space and type in ID, and this is going to be mid call. So that'll give me the spacing that I need for each one of those. Okay. Next, I need to, in the first one, where my first div class content call is, I'm going to tab in so I show that this is nested, and I'm going to type in the left caret A. So this is how we're going to link each one of these to a page. So I'm going to type in href, and I'm going to hit the enter return key, and then I'm going to go ahead and browse for this because I know where it's going. It's going to the showcase page. I've created it already, so I'm going to go ahead and just link that right now. And I also need to add a class to this A element. So right after where I've linked it to showcase, I'm going to type in the spacebar, class, and then col button, call button. Okay, and then right caret. And then to make sure that I don't forget that I need to close this out, I need to hit the enter return key a couple of times, left caret /. And the reason why I'm entering it a couple of times is because this A element is going to wrap all of our text inside of this A element. Okay, and so next I need to put in some type of header. So this is going to be the left caret h3, and this title is going to be current success stories. You could call it your showcase page. I'm calling it current success stories. And then I also have an image to go along with that. The image that I have created for this is the same width as this column, so it's 290 pixels wide. So I've already created this image, I've already found it. So I'm going to like left caret img src and hit the enter return key to browse for that. Images, and in this case this one is called current success. There it is, and click open. Spacebar, I need to put in the alt key for it, so this is going to be the showcase page. That's why I'm going to go ahead and just leave the alt as showcase there, / right caret. And now I also have some text that needs to go into here, and trying to decide here how much of this text do I want to put in. I want to go probably, let's see here, I want to go up to there. Let's go up to about that much right there. So I'm normally you would probably write this, maybe a little bit of something about what the showcase is all about. For this, for me, I'm just going to copy and paste some filler text from my personal legend that I've used earlier. So I'm going to scroll down now and find where that image is. So this is going right after the image. Hit the enter return key right after the image in that column. We're going to do this as a paragraph. So p tag left caret /, and that text is going to go right in the middle there. So we'll see how much text that actually works out to be, and may have to make some adjustments to that later, but for now you guys will understand the kind of the process here. So next I just need to start filling out the rest of these columns, and I'm just basically going to do kind of the same thing for each one. So I'm down here in my second column there, I'm going to tab in href, and I'm going to hit enter return. This is going to my career page, so I need to go back to that link there and select, or my internship page, internship experience, right caret, enter return key, left caret /, and then place my cursor up there in the middle, and h3, left caret /, and this is my internship experience. And next, enter return key, I'm going to put an image in there, image src, enter return, and this is going to be my, let's see, what did I have in there? Roadmap, that's what it is. Roadmap is the name of the image, alt, and then this is internship for the alt, / right caret to end that image statement out. And then I'm just going to copy and paste that filler text from the previous one right up above, so Command C, Control C, and then paste that in there. And finally the third one, so left caret ahref, browse for it. This is going to my education roadmap page. Right caret, enter return, left caret / because it's all going to get wrapped in there. So inside that A tag, left caret H3, and my title for this is roadmap to next steps, left caret / and then enter return, and left caret img src, enter return, and this image I have created is called college bound, and space alt, and then education roadmap is the alt for this one for me, and then at the end of that, make sure I get the / right caret, make sure that you're getting that / after the quotation marks, otherwise you'll end up with some problems there, and then enter return key, and I'm pasting my text right into there. So this should round out the content for me. I know I still have some styling left, and it looks like I forgot to tab that in, that content tab there, so I'm just going to do that now. I think I need to go one more time. There we go. So now it all looks pretty similar there in my code. I want to keep my code nice and neat. I'm going to save this real quick, pop over to my Firefox where I already have my portfolio open down here, and hit the refresh button, and then scroll down, and there we go. Oh, so a couple things that I forgot already. I think I forgot to add the class to that A element. So this is what happens when you don't style the A element correctly, is it applied that blue color to it and then underlined it as well. So I need to go back to my source code and locate those A elements there. So A href internship experience, that's the one I'm after, space class, and then colbtn for column button, and then same thing for that third one where that A element is right after the quotation mark, space call, space class col call button, and then save that, and then tab back over and refresh that just to make sure it worked good. So my text is black, it hovers over correctly like I want, but now I want to go back and finish a couple things to round out my text here. So let's go back to my Dreamweaver piece and pop into our style sheet, and then scroll down and locate that column section. So I left off with content 3 call hover, and I know I have a couple elements that I need to style, the H3 and the P tag, and then also an image adjustment for the spacing on the top. So I'm going to hit the enter return key a couple of times right after that last content 3 there piece, and I'm typing a period, content 3 call, so I get that class correctly, and then H3, and then open up a curly brace. The margin for this is 15 pixels on the top, 0 right, 0 bottom, 0 left, semicolon, and then the font size that I've chosen for this particular piece is 1.4 EM. You can use a fixed pixel width size if you'd like. And then last but not least, I want to see my text align to the center above that image on my column. And then I'm going to hit the enter return key and close that out with a curly brace. And then last but not least, or not last, I have two more things, but the P element I need to adjust, and don't need to do much here. So period, content, and 3 call, and then the paragraph tag, and then open up a curly brace. And for this one, we're going to do text align justify, so that the text all lines up in those boxes and they look nice and professional. And then last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and adjust the line height as well to those paragraphs. So 1.5 EM is what I'm going for. Make sure you get that semicolon in there, and then enter return key and curly brace. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to create another class that is to adjust the spacing of that image. And we're going to do it this way because if I remember right in my design and my mock-up, um, I had to make a class specifically for this section because I've used some spacing or margin values in another section. So this was a fix later on um, after I finished my mock-up. So I know ahead of time that I have to do this. You won't always know that when you get through your design. Like sometimes you just have to, sometimes things go awry and you have to make adjustments afterwards. So I have the privilege of hindsight here in making this tutorial. So in this case, this is what we're going to make. It's going to be called class, so it's a class, period, dot, dot image, hyphen marge for margin, and then adjust AUG or ADJ for adjust. And then open up a curly brace, enter return, and we're typing in margin. 15 pixels on the top, 0, 0, 0, the rest of the way around, and then enter return key, and then right curly brace. I need to apply that class that I just created to those images that I have in my design. So I'm going to pop over to the source code, locate each one of those images. The first one is current success. So right after the Alt key, where it says Alt Showcase, space, class, and this one is image margin adjust, and I'm just going to highlight that class and copy it. So Command C, Control C, and locate the next image and just paste that in there so I save myself some time here. Locate the third one, space, and then paste that in there. Save it, and let's tab over to Firefox, refresh it, and see what we got. Looks good. Make sure that these links go to those pages, and they do. It's always good to test your stuff out to make sure it works. Beautiful. Alright, now we've finished our home page. We're ready for the next step, which is our resume page.